Guys, I want to get loud all of a sudden.
Do it.
Sorry, I'm gonna.
It's you. I knew it was coming.
I'm sorry, guys,
Can't
but I
hold 'em
need
back.
to do that.
It is. You feel like Poseidon chucking that bugger down in the water.
Sucking that bugger. Did you butt out that deer?
I did not butt out that deer, but the next one I get,
Okay.
it's getting its butt out.
Is that little Stevie out here in the back?
Drobop. Bow drop, I'm sorry. Drobop. Hello. Stay tuned. I'll be back after my seizure.
Every little chipmunk that was running around, everything's dead quiet, and I went like that. Just happened.
I saw what is in essence a nature-gasm.
Welcome again, everybody. We appreciate you joining us again around the Sonic Campfire. This is Uncle Buck. It is a very special night indeed. We are down staff, but yet have staff around the table. We are multitasking as a group. Who do I have with me tonight?
This is Dave.
I'm Steve.
How you guys doing?
Doing well.
I'm awesome. So you remember the other day we were talking, and it's been cold here. Very
Real cold. Real cold.
Colder than normal. Much colder than normal. And, I had a chance to get out and fish through the ice a little bit. And I said, Phil, we need to do an ice fishing episode. And Phil's like, who could we get? And I said, I'm thinking we got to get the best guy in the industry here. And Phil says, I was just down at the Walmart buying power bait. I could probably get the clerk from there to call in, and
that's not the best person.
I said no, that's probably not the right guy. So we made a few calls, sent a few messages, and Phil, who do we have?
We caught the trophy.
We did catch the trophy.
As far as ice fishing goes,
Absolutely.
Because ever since I've been ice fishing, about 10 years back, it's all surrounded by this gentleman and Stevie. Without further ado,
who do we have on the line?
Hey, Dave Genz on this end.
This is Dave Genz.
Dave Genz.
Wow.
I would say Mr. Ice Fishing himself.
Absolutely, Mr. Ice Fishing. Yeah. How you doing, Dave?
Hey, I'm doing really well. It's been actually a long winter already this winter because of that early cold weather we had here in Minnesota, and I started the first weekend in November.
Oh my goodness!
And it might have been the 10th. Could have probably been the actual day. So maybe not the first weekend, but pretty darn close.
Wow!
And
wow.
We're not even
been
thinking
at it hard
about
ever since.
We're not even thinking about rifle season for deer at that point here in Pennsylvania, Dave. And you were already on the ice on November the 10th in Minnesota.
It's for the Minnesota deer opener or season. I was ice fishing almost every day.
Oh, wow!
Good for you.
Wow! Wow!
You had to choose your lake. You had to pick a smaller lake out in the
Oh yeah.
Shallow. The big lakes were all open yet. The deep lakes were open, but you could find ice, and that's what I enjoy doing.
That's awesome.
And do you ever, Dave? In fact, should we get some background about you, Dave?
Yeah, let's do that.
Dave, I know you live in Minnesota now, but are you born and raised Minnesotan?
Yeah, yes, I am. I'm actually living in my hometown again right now. And so I grew up. Well, my dad was a road construction worker when I grew up. I was the baby of the family. The young one that was. My brother is 12 years older than I am. So when I grew up, my dad didn't work in the wintertime. He'd already quit deer hunting, so we ice fished. Then our ice fishing season was the week of Thanksgiving.
Uh-huh.
And you could always find ice that time of year.
Yeah.
So I don't remember not ice fishing, through my whole life. And then I was, tried to live in northern Minnesota, but a sheer matter of economics, you end up in Minneapolis in a major city so you could get a job that pays something. And then I decided, after watching a Al Linder television show one time, he interviewed a Gadabout Gaddis. That might be a name that you guys are familiar with out east. But anyway, Al looked at him and he said, when you going to retire? And he looked at him and he said to Al, and he said, I'm not doing anything I care to retire from. So I looked at my wife and I said, well, I'm going to make my living in the fishing industry. And, here I am. I
Wow.
just
There you
tried
go.
summer, but I discovered ice fishing is what I knew more about. And,
Wow.
basically changed the way so almost the world ice fishes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, heck yeah.
Absolutely.
And before we get into that, what went into Dave Genz to bring us what we have now? Because I'm sure that there's 30 years of learning, of experience, of sucking in all this expertise, I'm sure from your father, from other guys.
Ice fishing was inexpensive. Most of our bait and tackle shops, they sold a dozen crappie minnows and a jiggle stick, and that was about it. There was no, and I came along and started manufacturing some products that made us more mobile. I'd like to say we brought people out of the Stone Age into the Space Age because.
Yeah.
In them early days, it was sticks and clubs is what we used. And now we're into, all the graphites and plastics and, the sonars and, so we have, came a long ways.
So you not only fish through the ice, Dave. You do all kinds of fishing, correct? You're not
Oh
simply
yes,
an ice fisherman.
I probably fish more in the summertime than I do in the winter. Actually,
Really?
now because in the wintertime you're doing things, traveling. And,
Yeah.
I've been in North Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota fishing so far this winter.
Wow.
Are you targeting any one species of fish, Dave, when you're doing this? Are you?
Yeah, at heart I'm a bluegill fisherman. That's what I like to fish, but not little ones. I'm looking for fish that are 10 inches and bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, big old slabby, and they're good. I mean, they're pretty coming out of the ice, and I tell you what.
Yeah, and they're hard to catch, but yet they're catchable in the middle of the day.
Yes, yeah.
If you're going to be a walleye guy, you so many times you're waiting for sunrise and sunset to be successful.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. Along with those crappie as well, if not into the nighttime. I found here.
And generally speaking, if you're in an area at the lake that holds the larger sunfish, the crappies are right there too. So you catch crappies as well as bluegills. I don't fish the crappies with minnows. I'm fishing with plastic. Hell, that's becoming more and more popular all the time. And then
Sure is.
The colored maggots, the Euro larva, that's my other choice.
Are you taking notes here, bud?
Yeah, I'm definitely
Better.
taking notes. I'm
You
taking
better.
hardcore notes from this guy.
So Dave, you developed kind of that what's called your system, the system. Can you and I think there's 4 or 5 different components to that system of ice fishing. Could you take us down that lane and kind of walk us through those different
I'll
components?
explain what I'm using now to be a successful ice angler. And mobility is the key to catching more fish. What's my favorite fish to catch? It's really red lines on my Vexlar. I don't care what they are. Just give me some red lines down there, and so I can, work on catching these fish. It's very much like playing a video game, only you've got live players on the other end.
That's funny. We've said that before. That using the sonars in ice fishing is exactly like playing a video game.
Only you're not really sure how they react, and the game changes every day,
Yeah.
Video games, once you kind of master them, you master them, but, nobody has really mastered the sport of ice fishing yet. So that's the fun thing about it.
Sure.
So, mobility. I mean, I learned that you had, fishing more than one hole in a day, very early in my life. But back in the early days, you were chopping holes, so it wasn't so easy to move. You went back to the same holes every evening and chopped it out and hoped the fish came, or you were in a fish house. I always remember my dad saying, "Now they'll start biting about 4 o'clock." Like they're all sitting down there underneath the house with their mouth open. At 4 o'clock, they're going to grab your bait.
Oh man.
You talk about mobility, Dave. What are you looking for when you are moving?
You got to kind of think that you're ice trolling is what you're doing. You got a lake map, you've got it in your hand, and you're fishing a sunken island or a weed line or an inside corner or a point, and you want to drill it out as how we say. You want to drill holes, on edge of the weed line or the bottom of the break. An interesting place that a lot of people don't look for is, let's just say the basin of the lake, the deepest part is 30 feet. I want to know where 27, 28, 29 are, that the basin as it breaks down in there.
Okay.
That's where the bottom there is a little better consistency. It's slid down the side of the hill over the years, and that's where the burrowing insects can burrow into the bottom, and they actually live down there, like the mayflies and stuff that hatch throughout the summer. Some of them live up to 2 years in holes in the bottom.
Wow.
And every evening they come up and they feed on the zooplankton as the sun's going down. And then they go back in their holes, because if they wouldn't go back in their holes, something would eat them.
So that's what causes the activity to increase right before sundown. Is those?
It's the zooplankton that's raising up off the bottom, which are almost microscopic. You can see them in the water. And there's heterocopeds, a lot of different names to them, and they come up to feed on the phytoplankton. That's a sunlight made through little specks in the water that microscopic specks that they eat. But when they start rising up off the bottom, when the sun goes down, they're so thick that you can't hardly see them through them with a camera. Wow. If you just a bunch of little white balls down there, if you've used a camera at dark, or on your sonar, your Vexilar, there's just all kinds of green lines down there. Wow. But they're so thick that these fish can come out and feed on them. And then as night comes on, they dispense through the water column, and the fish with the smaller mouths can't feed them anymore. But like crappie, they can swim around at night with their mouth open and use their little pectoral fins and suck this stuff in and swallow it.
Okay.
And the bigger fish are feeding on the smaller fish. So everything kind of happens at sunrise and sunset.
Just kind of going off that same thought real quick, have you ever used a fluorescent light, like a green light, to produce those conditions over a sustained period of time and fished over that or under that?
You mean to draw fish into your location at nighttime?
Yeah,
the only time I've ever done that is in Michigan when I was fishing smelt, where they actually lowered lights down into the water and the smelt would come to the light, and it was pretty interesting. Smelt are small, but the people were all fishing with 3 hooks on their line, and the goal was to catch 3 at one time. Then you were the hot guy if you could catch 3 at once. So it was an interesting concept.
That's called efficiency with your reeling back in.
I was out in North Dakota, out at Lake Metagoshi, out by Botany, North Dakota, up on the Canadian border, and we had a couple really nice days, which is abnormal for January in North Dakota, and it was just so much fun to be outside and socialize with the locals. I didn't know any of these people I was fishing with, and mostly young guys. They were in their 20s, but just what a nice time it is out on the ice to talk to people. In the summertime, if you're close enough to another boat to talk to them, somebody's mad.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Definitely.
In the wintertime, you can actually go out and meet people and talk to them out on the ice.
That's true.
You and I are kindred spirits, because I was just going to, if I could, I'd hug you right now for saying that. I really would, because ice fishing is so much more communal.
Yes, correct.
In nature, and hey, what are you doing? Why didn't you guys? And what I love about it is it's a sport that you can even share the same area, and even though you are, doesn't mean that guy that you invited in is going to catch more fish than you if you know how to catch them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a
but yet you can share that, and I've had great times with family where I've even had family members get up and leave because I caught a 14.5-inch crappie out of the ice
leave if you did.
out of the same hole that they were just using, and I dropped my line in it, and that is the best crappie I've ever caught in my life, and the most memorable ice fishing moment ever in my life, Dave.
I'd have pushed you out of the hole.
It's interesting that there was it's a social sport, but there was 10 of us around my cabin here last week, and we all fish in one-person shelters. We don't fish alone; we fish independently.
Mm-hmm.
We all got the gear, we all got an electric auger, we all got a Vexilar, and we move around and locate the fish, and then we end up close enough together that we're still talking through the canvas, or you got the house at half mast to make them windbreaks.
Yeah,
but sometimes when you go out and set up the bigger houses, then it gets to be, it's too much work to move. So then you'll sit there and wait. But, we keep moving and looking until the red lines are on our Vexillars.
And plus, having all those guys, you can be much more, like you were saying, mobile and do a little bit of trolling through the buddy system as well.
Yeah. When you get to a lake and you're all by yourself, I feel so small.
Yeah.
There's a whole lake out there, and here I am all by myself. But when you got a few guys that are working together, you eliminate water a lot quicker.
So Dave, talk a little bit, if you would, about mobility and how that plays such a key role in your ice fishing.
Well, interesting. I mentioned that I was fishing with these younger guys, and they were busy drilling holes, and I was riding on my snowmobile, which I have rigged up with a Vexillar FLX28 and a camera and a GPS mounted up on the dash. But they're drilling holes, and I'm just riding along behind them with my snowmobile, throwing the transducer in the hole looking for fish. And you'd fish, 8, 10, 12, 15 holes, and all of a sudden, there's one down there. We were fishing, basin fish, and all of a sudden there's a line 3 feet off the bottom. Well, it's got to be a fish. Can't be anything else, and you lower down to and catch it. So
you're drilling, or someone. You're drilling that many holes. So I'll give you an example. So last week I guess it was Sunday, I was out by myself, and this was a smaller lake. I think this is, I don't know, 10 or 20 acre lake, something like that. Public lake, local here. And there was maybe 30 people out on that, 40 people. So there was a fair amount. There's more people. I fish in the summertime at this lake too, and there's never that many people fishing in the summertime. So it was pretty well. The lake was pretty well pressured. But I drilled probably 6 holes in 3 hours, and it sounds like I was nowhere close to drilling anywhere near the amount of holes that Dave Genz would have drilled if he was there.
Well, this particular instance that I was talking about, we were fishing the basin of the lake, and it was, there was probably, 80 acres of water that was all around 20 feet deep.
Yeah.
And then fish are somewhere over that basin. So, you got to drill enough holes to find them. There's only, a small group, or they were this time of the year, they're broke down into pods.
Okay.
And there's 2, 3, 4 fish together, but then there's a group that's kind of together too, but they're not, right next to one another. So so when you see these fish down there, and you drop your line down to them, I discovered you get one on. If you don't get it up and get it off quick and get back down again, the other ones leave. They're not down there anymore.
Yeah.
So I rigged up another rod I had sitting there. And as soon as I'd get that fish out of the hole, I would just throw that rod down and grab the other rod and put it down. Then I could catch another one. But if I took the time to take the one off, and rebait and go back down there, they'd be gone.
I tend to fish 2 ice holes right next to each other with fixed rods at the very minimum, and then
like 2 rods in at the same time.
2 spinning rods.
Okay.
Yeah, with holes maybe 10 inches apart at most.
Okay.
But a lot of times I run either a T or an X pattern in tip-ups. And in Pennsylvania, we can have a total of, 6 rods in the...
5 or 6, yeah, something like that.
6 rods, I think, total. And I try to run some kind of a X pattern or a T pattern, depending upon where I know structure is or is that wrong, Dave? Or am I doing okay?
Well, I personally don't use any tip-ups. I fish with one rod in one hole, and I keep moving and looking, and I don't spend over a couple of minutes in a hole if there's no red line down there. I'm moving.
Okay.
Until I find a fish. Now, once I've caught a fish in that hole, I'm in the air, then I'll be a little more patient. But at the beginning, it's, I'm going to drill a hole, drop my line down. Let's say the 4 of us are fishing together. And we get out there together, and each of us drills 3 holes. So now we've drilled 12 holes. Mm-hmm. We've fished them 12 holes. And then we talk a little bit. These holes are close enough together that we can talk. Mm-hmm. Hopefully when somebody's seen a fish, so it's easy to go over that way. But, it might be a little deeper here. It's shallow. I got a few weeds in this hole. So then you drill another set of holes. and that's how we eliminate water and find the fish. A mistake I see people make is they go out there and they just start drilling holes, and then they don't even look in half of them because they're in the wrong place. And you know, they waste a lot of time and energy. You know, and now these new electric augers that we're using, using our DeWalt and our Milwaukee drills, just like the ones we use in our shop.
Yeah.
And they're cutting our holes for us. Is it just amazing how well, it's actually the new battery technology that available to us.
And even in the last 4 years since I've really hit the ice fishing hard, the technology with the augers, I still use a hand auger, 8-inch hand auger.
An 8-inch hand auger.
Yeah,
that's pretty big to hand auger through.
You're a big guy, I can tell that.
No, I'm a little dude, but I like that big hole because I always like to be prepared.
Yeah,
well,
tell
I
me
wish I
about
knew
it.
a spot that the fish didn't fit out of my 6-inch pole, because if there was a spot that somebody had, I'll come with a bigger auger and drill all the holes.
So we're talking about mobility. What's the next part of your system?
Well, to have a balance of a sonar. I guess we talked about that already. I'm going to have a piece of electronics that's in the hole that I'm fishing out of, so that I know how deep the water is, and I know what depth my jig is at, and if there's any fish there or not. But then it goes to the rod and reel combo. If I'm fishing with a small jig, I need to fish with light line. Like 2-pound test for a small jig, because the jig has to be heavy enough to take the kinks out of my line.
Sure.
And make it hang straight so that I can feel that jig bouncing when I'm fishing it. Using a rapid cadence, I want to feel it bouncing.
What do you? What size? Like what? Let's talk about this. Explore the jigs a little bit more. What's your go-to?
Is the word now in ice fishing? Everybody's buying tungsten lures.
Mm-hmm.
At Clam we have the Clam Pro tackle that I've designed some of them the lures. The drop kick happens to be my favorite one. A trick with the drop kick, and actually with any jig that hangs horizontal in the water, you want to slide the knot that you've tied onto the eye of the hook around towards the point of the hook. And when you do that, it makes it hang more horizontal and makes it kick.
Okay.
Especially with the drop kick that I designed, because you can slide that line around the eye, and it actually goes past it. And it's amazing how when you jig it makes the bait kick instead of just going up and down.
Okay. What's your go-to size, or is for jigs?
Probably a number 10 is what I use the most. And most of the time I'm packing, Ural Arba maggots on there, spikes, whatever you want to call them, hooked lightly on the blunt end. And most of the time I got several packed on there, as many as I can get on there, especially if I'm fishing for bigger fish. But the key is to keep them fresh.
Okay.
You can't go out there with 50 of these in your cup. I've got hundreds with me every time I go out, so that I can put fresh ones on. If you're fishing with a minnow and you get a bite on it and it doesn't look real good, you put a new minnow on. But it's kind of how the worm type baits, we reposition them and say, that's good enough, and you throw it back down there again.
You get a couple more casts out of that, right?
Yeah.
I want that fresh juice on them because I just hooked them, and I want
Makes sense.
them moving on my hook. And it's little things like that make a world of difference.
So it's along those same lines, Dave. I don't, we don't have a whole lot of our whole, very long ice season up here, and there's not a lot of options at local tackle shops for ice jigs. But I try to buy every single one that I can find, and so I have 40, 50, 60 different ice jigs, and I have no idea what any of them do. So I really, there's one that I keep on there, and I tip it with a waxworm. How much does color play? Because I've got some that are teardrop shaped, some that are a little bit longer shaped, look more like a worm. Some that are
a spoon with the flasher on. Yeah.
How much does the in particular the color or the size? Do you find that? How important is it?
A rule of thumb that My dad taught me when I was young. It doesn't totally hold true now, but on a bright day, you want to use your brighter colors, the yellows and chartreuse and orange, and the bright greens. And on a dark day, then you want to use the dark colors of the browns and the blacks and the grays. But in our day and age now, it's on a bright day you use the bright colors, and on a dark day you use glow.
Yeah.
So we can charge up them glow jigs. So I don't use, I've got one black jig that I use, but it's got a couple of red glow eyes on it, and I think that's why I like it, because of the two eyes that glow red.
So you have like a UV light or something that you use to charge these up with?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of different things out there, the jig chargers that are out there. I got a new fan light that Clam has this year, a rechargeable light that I can hang up on the little bar right over to my head in my fish house.
Yeah.
And just use the beam that, it's got a fluorescent light to light the whole thing up. But I got that beam shining right down in front of me so I can charge my glow jig. If I need to retie or rebait, I got all that bright light, right in front of me. And, I'm 70 years old now, so I need all the help I can get to see.
Oh, my gosh,
Wow.
Dave. I'm 46, and I need that same light, bud, so cut yourself some slack.
Well, it was funny when I was 46. I would joke about, I don't need glasses. I can still tie 2-pound test line. And my buddies would go, yeah, by the Braille method. And you know what I mean. You're just kind of poking at the hole.
Oh, yeah. I've got buddies just like you, too, Dave. God bless them.
So I'm brand new to ice fishing. If we get out before the ice goes away, for me anyway, if Stevie invites me one of these days.
I've invited you at least half a dozen times, and you have some kind of excuse.
Yeah. But I was trying to look for ice fishing rods. What's your, like, if we're still talking about the line and the jigs, moving up, we're going to talk about rods and reels. What's a basic one to get into?
To me, I understand that stiffness equals sensitivity. A rod has to be straight if you're going to have feel. Now, there's a lot of people that use real soft tip rods, or they use a spring bobber. That's two different styles of fishing. When you're using a spring bobber or a soft rod, you're kind of waving the bait when that spring goes up and down, or that soft rod goes up and down. Okay. Myself, I'm using a much stiffer rod, and I'm vibrating at a real short, rapid cadence. So it's two totally different styles of fishing. Sometimes one works better than the other. I feel that I can make my bait wave. Not as good as a spring bobber, but I can make it wave. But a person with a spring bobber can't give that rapid cadence because the spring doesn't allow it.
Right.
Okay.
So, Dave, you've designed some rods for Clam, right?
Correct. There's quite a few rods through the years for different companies, and we have they're price point rods.
Sure.
The Light Bite now is the inexpensive model. It's a $30 rod and reel combo, and I just put some 2-pound test line on it this afternoon, and because I just like the feel of it. And then we've got nice spring bobbers. We have springs with different tension on them. So if you use a little heavier jig, you use a little heavier spring. And interesting what I've really noticed, because we went to said tungsten lures and all that, they're heavier, and it took my ultralight rod now wasn't really stiff enough to give it that cadence that I liked. I had to switch to the light rod, and then we added a medium light for the bigger sizes.
Wow.
So
so not only your action of rods.
About a reel a little bit about the. When we first started using rod and reels, we kept thinking smaller, lighter, because we only had a stick before. We didn't have any reel on it.
Yeah.
And we got down to state they were so tiny that you couldn't even wind the fish in anymore. The drag would just slip, and it was hard to do it. I discovered that you need a larger arbor on your spool, the size of the spool your line wraps around it. If they're a larger arbor, the drag starts easier. It's a leverage thing. You're farther away from the center, so it starts easier.
Makes sense.
So that's kind of where we're at now. The Clam True Blue reels have had several years of designing to get them to where they are. They really work well right now.
Dave, how long has Clam been around? That's a pretty well-known company in in this industry, correct?
Yeah, the clamfish house originally was a suitcase style fish house where you opened it up and set the poles in and pulled the cover over the top. But you had a floor, and the fish traps. That's the house that I designed it. My wife started sewing on the home sewing machine
Really?
at home. The first year she sewed 5. This was the hard part about getting into the fishing industry, convincing your wife.
We could all take some pointers there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first year she sold 5, and the second year she sold 20, and the third year she sold 80, and then she wasn't going to sell anymore.
Wow.
And but if you think about that on the home sewing machine, that it took her a long time. But
She sewed 80 by hand, like on a home sewing machine.
yeah.
Holy cow.
And then we were not near as smart as they are now. Now they hold the Velcro holds the canvas to the pipes.
Yeah.
We sewed the pipes totally in, so there was you couldn't see them.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more work for her.
Yeah.
But anyway, then Clam was building these flip-over fish or suitcase style fish house, and I was building this flip-over fish house. But pretty soon the guy, I got to know the guy at Denny Clark was his name, that was making the clams, because we were at shows together and things, and
Sure.
And eventually we decided we should just ride together instead of going separately.
Yeah. This was before you were with Clam.
And then I licensed Clam to manufacture and market my fish houses. And, I went on the road and ice fished from, Maine to Montana.
Wow.
Dave, I have a 5x5 by 6 foot, I want to say, clam ice hut or house.
A pop-up.
A pop-up.
Or a 5x6 with the plastic floor.
It has a plastic floor. I open it up. It sleds out there. It's like a sled. I use it as my ice sled. And then I open it up, and then I have the extending poles. I bought it about 8 years ago. And it is great. It's a great 2-man ice house. We can fish 4 holes out of it. We can put little buddy heaters in there that are catalytic with maybe a lantern up top. And I'm taking clothes off. It blocks the wind.
Easy, bud.
It is great. I love it. It kept me ice fishing on days I would not normally go out. Yeah, it blocks the wind. It really does. It takes those bitter cold days and makes you go out. Takes all the excuses away.
They don't even make that style of house anymore with the plastic base. They all got these pop-ups that pop up, and they don't have floors in them. And it became a price point. You can get this much bigger house with no floor for a lot less money, so people wouldn't buy the floor ones anymore. But now we got them new thermal materials, and it's amazing how little heat it takes to heat these things now because of the insulated houses.
Okay.
Speaking of insulated, and this is another Dave Genz area, is your ice team apparel.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Dave, about 8 years ago, I bought an Ice Team apparel hat, and that thing is gold. Gold. It is my go-to when nothing else will keep my head warm. I put that on. It cuts wind. It cuts the water. It is the warmest thing that I've ever put on my head. And in fact, if it's not bitter cold, you can't stand it to be on.
Really?
You sweat so
yes,
bad.
We've got all complete line of clothing from socks. I'm looking down at my feet now, and there's the Clam on the side of my merino wool socks, and different underwears, and our suits are, waterproof and warm. And our ascent suit actually floats, so that if you fell through the ice, you would float. You wouldn't go under. And it's a very comfortable float suit. The float suits have been around for a lot of years. Some of them orange ones.
Yeah.
But you felt like the Tin Man when you were in one. But these new suits are, with that closed cell foam, are so comfortable and pliable that and they keep you warm, and dry.
Could you walk
I've
us
been
through?
fishing. Well, today, as a matter of fact, the wind chill was 41 below zero today. I didn't go fishing, but only because I was out the last couple of days when it was nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you walk us through? So I think when I talk to people and the topic of ice fishing comes up, the first thing everybody complains about is how cold you must be. Oh, it's too cold. It's too cold. And it's cold. I'll be the first to admit that. But could you walk us through kind of like what goes into, what's in Dave Genz's duffel bag on his trip to the lake ice fishing?
Well, I said my clothes-wise, I've got an ice armor suit on, and I've got a good pair of boots. But cold is kind of relative. If you're cold, grab that auger and drill some more holes. Do something. Get your heart rate up. And you just don't get cold. Walkaways. Do something to. Joggers don't get cold. And people that are biking in the wintertime don't get cold. And
that's true.
It's. But if you're just going to sit there and not catch anything because you're going to get cold, another tip I like to give people. So many times I give people, well, they want to take somebody new out to ice fishing. How do I get them to catch fish? The best thing you can do is show up at the lake an hour before the sun goes down and fish that hour. Don't go at noon, and then by 3 o'clock you're cold and you leave, and you don't catch anything.
Yeah.
Show up at that last hour of the day, and where am I going to fish? Where the rest of the people are. The fish are going to be biting there when that sun hits the top of the trees. Yeah. That golden hour, as I call it. And then you go out and you get successful and you catch a few. Then you might be able to come back earlier in the day and kind of duplicate it. But success is so important when you go out there.
What one fish do you remember catching through the ice?
Well, probably one of my most memorable ones is a fish I didn't catch. Oh. I just had it on my line, and I'm in Valentine, Nebraska, fishing big bluegills, and we're filming a show with Tony Dean Outdoors, and this lake I have some 1.5-pound bluegill that I've caught in this lake, and I've witnessed a 2.5-pound bluegill that came out of this lake.
Wow!
And so I'm out there, and the camera is running, filming somebody else, and I'm kind of in the background, and I set the hook, and I got this trophy fish on, and it runs this way and it runs that way, and I can see it. The water's only like 5 feet deep, so I get a good look at this fish.
Oh man!
And I make some comment about, oh, this is the biggest bluegill that I've ever had on, I'm very confident I'm gonna catch it, and all of a sudden it just gets off. Doesn't break my line. It just gets off. And I'm just, I can't believe that fish got away, and I'm feeling so sad.
There's a reason why it was 2.5 pounds.
Yeah, well, then they go to commercial break. Then the TV station does, or Tony Dean does, and they come back. They're 4 or 5 minutes later, and there I am still complaining about that fish that I got away. Every time I lose a fish, I think about that.
Yeah,
but you are right. I mean, I have more memories about fish I never caught because in my mind they might be a heck of a lot bigger than what they ever would have been, or there's still that mystery on the other end.
Yes. As far as bluegills are concerned, I seldom miss a bluegill under a pound.
And what and what I was thinking is, what kind of bluegill throws a hook? Normally they don't do that.
Yeah, it was like I can't explain it. Just got away.
And that's why I said that's why he's a 2.5-pound bluegill. It's just like there's a reason why bucks are 12 points. They're smart.
Right.
Yeah. Right. They lived an extra few years.
Yeah, and they know what that is. That's a hook, and it shouldn't be there. God bless you. What is a species that you've not caught that you want to through the ice? What's your bucket list?
Well, I don't know about species I haven't caught, but Lake Superior is the only lake. Now, that's the closest one to me here in Minnesota that I haven't caught a walleye through the ice of the Great Lakes.
Okay.
I've caught one in Lake Erie and Lake Ontario and Lake Huron and Lake Michigan. And Here I am, the one closest to home. And it's the one I fished the most. But when I've fished Lake Superior over the years, I always fished it for trout.
Yeah.
So now, and why I haven't got up there to do that, but that's kind of on my bucket list here real soon to go up and catch a walleye in Lake Superior. That's kind of like a grand slam if you catch a walleye through the ice on all the Great Lakes.
Let's see you. I want to see you do that. Let's make that happen. Do I need to come and get you and go do that with you? Or
you should go up there.
Yeah, it's my own fault. I've been to Chequamegon Bay and I went there to do it one time, and it was in March, and then it pours rain. I mean, it's thundering and lightning, and I can't believe they're not going to let me go out there and catch this fish. And I couldn't stay any longer, but that's the only trip I actually made for it. And Duluth is not that far away from me to fish where the St. Louis River dumps into Lake Superior there. I know I could catch some walleyes there, so it's just a matter of going to do it.
Do you ever get to just go out and fish, or are you always are you always being filmed? Are you always working? I guess when you fish, Dave.
Well, they'd probably like me to be filming all the time, but no, I get out and fish.
You do.
It's kind of interesting. I mentioned that I'm 70 years old now, so you spend your whole life getting to where I'm at right now, and now I can't get out.
Hey,
not that I really want to, but it's kind of interesting how they find more and more things for you to do.
We were talking about the Great Lakes, and we have a lot of. We're located in central Pennsylvania, so Lake Erie would be the closer of the Great Lakes for us. Where and a lot of our listeners are from Pennsylvania. Where in Lake Erie is a great place to target fish on the ice?
Lake Erie's got some ice on it this year too, so that's the good thing about the cold weather, that it freezes up some of them Great Lakes.
Yeah.
I remember my first trip to Lake Erie. The 4 of us went out there, and the first day we caught none, never being there before. Mm-hmm. And the second day we caught 4, but they were all in the 8 to 9 pound range. And then the third day we caught 57.
Did you say 8 to 9 pound?
Yes.
What
12.4 was our biggest one on the
this was walleye?
The third day.
Those are all walleye?
Yeah.
Wow.
Lake Erie's got huge walleyes in it.
Awesome. Good night.
That's right north of us, guys.
Yeah, you're close to that.
We're not far from Lake Erie.
Dave, why don't you come out here and help us catch some of them?
Yeah, you help us catch 54 8-pound walleye in one day or whatever it was. Jeez.
Well, I said it took us days. Yeah. Sometimes you like to say you figured it out, but it's more like, they're pretty easy when they're biting.
Yeah.
We've all been out there on days where you can do nothing wrong. Everything you catch, and they're big, and it's all exciting. And then you think you got it figured out, and you go back and you don't catch anything.
That's why we call those days catching and not fishing.
Yeah. Exactly.
I had a perfect storm of crappie one time on a river.
You did?
In the cold water. And it was catching, not fishing.
Recently?
No. It's been about 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe someday,
because if you had one of those perfect days and didn't call us,
you would have seen it.
You'd be hearing about it. So Dave, if you could go back and tell, 10-year-old Dave Genz some advice on ice fishing, if there was one thing that you could go back and teach your younger self about ice fishing, what do you think that would be?
Well, that fishing independently, and even when you're in a boat, you're not really, you're casting one way and somebody else is casting the other way.
Yeah.
In a fish house, you need to do the same thing. If you're sitting in one house, you're all casting in the same place, which doesn't you wouldn't do that in the summer. You would cast in different places. So if you're a young person, get your own equipment and go out and fish independently, and your success will go way up. And you'll meet some more people out there that want to fish that way.
Yeah.
And once you get a few people together, the lake doesn't seem so big anymore, and you meet new people. And we started a tournament series years ago. Originally, they were called the Trap Attacks, which was it was just friends of mine that I got together to start with that helped me kind of get started.
Yeah.
And I used to have a Christmas party. Well, I got too busy at Christmas, so I moved it into January. And it was just a get together, and as it grew, more and more people came, and at one point we had 150 teams, and we gave away $10,000.
Wow!
Nice.
As we traveled across the country from Minnesota to Iowa to Michigan to Illinois, Wisconsin, all the way out to Vermont, we did tournaments. But it was at that point we were spreading the word, and we were ice fishing was so regional. People only fished their 2 or 3 little lakes, and they were afraid to go somewhere else because they afraid they wouldn't catch anything because they didn't know where to go. And when we started doing this tournament, suddenly the people from, Iowa met the people from Minnesota, and then we met the people from Michigan and Illinois, and they just couldn't wait for the next tournament so they could come meet their new friends. And and some of them tournaments are still going on, but not like it was at the beginning when we were, spreading the word about the sonar and mobility, and people were making friends.
Yeah, I don't think you can say enough about the mobility end of it, and I never really put that together. And you make it, in a lot of your videos, you talk about that, about how, your snowmobile is kind of like your bass boat on the ice.
Exactly, it's my bass boat on ice.
Yeah, and you can't, for whatever reason, I don't know if we're conditioned to think that when there's ice on a lake that the fish are all going to be concentrated into one area, that's 1 4-foot diameter circle. All the fish are going to be there. For some reason, I don't know. It's just not in our nature, or at least my nature. The people on, like I said, there was a bunch of people fishing on the ice on Sunday, and for the most part, there was a guy would drill 1 hole or 2 holes and just sit there for hours on end. And
and they're basically waiting for that sun to start going down.
Yeah.
So when that zooplankton starts raising up, then the fish start moving because they're swimming with their mouth open, sucking in that it's almost like a goo in the water,
Yeah.
But that's what they're living on in the wintertime because there isn't any bug hatches going on. They got to do the larva part of it, and about 4 o'clock, or this time of the year is 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. That these fish will start feeding, and that's what people wait for. But if you can find them, get them down there. You can usually make them bite in the daytime, but they can't make them bite if they're not there.
Yeah. Dave, we're bumping up here close on time, but before we wrap it up, what is I've seen. So you talked a little bit about bait and how you're using live bait. I've seen. I have a few of those sort of soft plastics that, it's a typical ice jig with a soft plastic. I don't know if you call it a trailer. I guess you call it a trailer on it. Do you have much experience with those or much success? With that?
My plastic that I enjoy using and use are Mackie plastics. They're made up in Buffalo, New York, and they're all hand poured. And they simulate little bugs and creatures in the water, but being hand poured, they're really soft and lifelike because you don't heat it.
Okay.
A lot of the plastics are heated and injected into their mold,
Sure.
And then when they cool, they get stiffer. But the hand poured ones stay nice and pliable. We talked about color earlier. Color gets much more important than when you're using plastics. When you get it. The color right, the right combination down there. When you catch the fish, the hook is almost in their throat.
Yeah.
You could kind of override color with live bait. You could have the wrong color lure on, but if you got good fresh bait on there, sometimes they'll bite anyway. But when you're fishing plastics and you get some fish come in on your sonar and they didn't bite, it's important to change color as well as sometimes the shape. And all the different little tricks of hooking plastics. It's not just string them on there. Interesting story about plastic. I was doing a late season water television show with John Gillespie out of Milwaukee, mm-hmm. And the air temperature was 5 degrees, or the wind chill was 5 degrees. So it was cold out there, and he was fishing with plastic most of the time. And at the end of the day, I noticed there was 15 pieces of plastic laying on the floor of the boat that all looked perfectly fine to me. We tend to, keep putting that plastic on, rehooking it, and using it as long as we can, instead of throwing it away and getting a new one.
Yeah.
And I think most of us are guilty of that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Keep all the bait fresh, even if it's live or to plastic.
Yeah, even the plastic. If it's tore up a little bit and instead of try to rehook it, just get a new piece of plastic. You've got all this money tied up in ice fishing equipment, and then we cheapen out at the bait.
Yeah, on a
Amen.
50-cent
Cheapest
piece
part.
of plastic.
Yeah. That makes sense, Dave. That truly does.
Wow. Is there anything we missed talking about, David, with the system?
Well, again, it's comfort. Getting good clothes on, good pair of ice cleats. That's an important part of it, and kind of interesting. Like I said, I turned 70 now, and now I'm riding a bicycle out on the ice. I bought a fat tire bike.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Maybe you've seen that video on Facebook of me riding my fat tire bike out on the ice. But, it's because no
That's
motorized vehicles lie on lakes, and I think that's Pennsylvania, isn't it? You can't drive an ATV or snowmobile on a lot of the lakes.
A majority of them, I would
So
say.
this fat tire bike with studs on the tires is the way to go. You get away from the crowds then on these little larger lakes.
And Dave, you know what else is nice is they continue that attitude on. It's even in the summer. A lot of our lakes, you can't even have an engine on it. You have to have an electric motor.
Yeah, no
only.
gas engines.
No
Yeah.
gas engines.
Yep.
And that's one of the, I think as an angler, the finer points of fishing on some of these smaller lakes in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Well, mark my word, that's going to be the craze. Is these fat tire bikes fishing on these frozen lakes?
No kidding.
Let's start investing, boys.
Yeah. Do you have any? Do you have a line of bikes coming out soon that we should?
No. I purchased a bike this year. No one gave me one. This was my own idea because I wanted to go to this one lake that it's on a national wildlife refuge and no motorized vehicles are allowed. So I wanted to get it away from the crowd. I've been fishing it for quite a few years, and everybody's walking.
Yeah.
Well, you only walk so far,
Right.
and I'm fishing beyond the end of the plowed road now, or the path, and I can definitely see that the fish size is bigger where nobody's been catching them for year after year after year.
Awesome.
Wow.
All righty,
So
Dave.
that's my latest thing.
That's awesome.
Riding a bicycle at 70.
Dave, thank you very much. We could go on for hours, for days, just swapping stories and
Or just listening, because
I could sit here and listen to you. Stevie's exactly right. I could listen to you all for days. I think we need to plan a week or so up there on Lake Superior fishing with you, maybe.
Or just somewhere in Minnesota.
Exactly. You name the lake, I'll go fishing with you, bud. I mean, I'm not going to complain one bit.
Yeah, we have.
For sure, we're going to have to get together again and do this radio show one more time.
Oh,
yeah, we'd love that.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, please promise me you will.
We have about.
You got my number.
All right.
Yeah. We have about a week or two, maybe 3, of hard water here in Pennsylvania, in our part of Pennsylvania. We had 9 or 10 inches of ice here at the beginning of the week, and we're expecting 65-degree temperatures and rain tomorrow. So I don't know how much longer that's going to stick around. But to be able to talk with someone that you've however many months, weeks, you've got a lot longer than us. It's great to hear that. That someone like you're able to get out so much, you're able to impart that information,
And learn
to
from
us,
year to year.
teach other people. Please, we appreciate all you've done for the sport, and giving back and education. And speaking of which, how can people learn more about you, more about clam, and just more about ice fishing in general?
Well, of course, iceteam.com. That's a lot of information on there. Clam, all the products that I've talked about, the clothing and the rods and all that can all be looked at the Clam website at clam.com. And my website, davegenz.com, or just type in Dave Genz, and lots of YouTube stuff out there too.
Sure is.
Well, that's kind of what everybody is working on now, is a lot more YouTube videos.
Sure.
And there'll be more and more of them all the time.
Sure. And you're on Facebook as well, right, Dave?
That's correct.
Okay. Perfect. Well, we do appreciate you taking some time with us tonight. It's really been a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And I said anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. Have
Take
a great
care, Dave.
evening and keep on catching, buddy. Stevie.
Yeah, bud.
You set that up, buddy. That's the guru.
He's
I
the
try
guru.
not to gush at the.
It's hard not to.
Did I do
isn't it?
okay?
It's hard not to. It's
So-
like
He is the man.
Well, I was pretty quiet. I was soaking everything in because I want to use that this winter.
Yeah.
It was great to hear perspective on ice fishing from a legend, as you guys are pointing out.
Yeah.
He spends a ton of time
DK
on the hard water.
Guys
That's
used
awesome.
to just pull their houses out and just sit in them all year long. Well, maybe the fish will come. Like he would, like even Dave
Right.
said on the show, like maybe they will come. Hopefully they'll come. But Dave actually realized I got to get out and move. I got to find the fish. I need to figure this pattern
if you
out.
if you watch Kevin Van Dam in a bass tournament and
Right.
how he's that running
covering
gun,
water.
yeah, just pull in, start, chuck your lure a couple times, see what you got. If you don't get anything,
Move.
beat it out of there. That's
Nobody's
how
home
he
over
does.
here,
Yeah,
so you got to move.
That's
Start drilling out of
exactly.
holes.
That's how that run and gun fishing
Awesome.
style, and and for whatever reason, we like to just drill the hole, sit there and wait. And Dave, is the pioneer and that whole mobility. Watch his videos, man. He has got a tricked out snowmobile with, like he said, all the electronics right on there. He doesn't even get off
I need to check out the tricked out bike mobile.
Yeah, that's mine. Yeah, with the studs.
Yeah.
But it was awesome to talk to him. Stevie, where can they find us?
Well, they can find us at RuttenRiverPursuits.com. We are on Facebook and Twitter at Rutten River Pursuits Podcast. And we are on Instagram, iTunes, Podmania, and Hulu at...
Did we say check us out at YouTube?
He screwed all that up.
Let's do that.
Start
again.
over.
They can find us at RuttenRiverPursuits.com, on Facebook and Twitter at Rutten River Pursuits Podcast, on Instagram at R2Pursuits, and on YouTube at Rutten River Pursuits Podcast. Please look us up on YouTube. There's going to be a bunch of great stuff coming up here soon. So hit the subscribe button, listen to the stuff on there, and keep an eye out for us because things are going to get crazy here.
Search us
soon.
on all of your favorite apps to listen to your podcast.
iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Castbox. Don't just listen to the link on Facebook. Subscribe through one of those podcast apps and just get it on your phone, automatically every week.
Give us a review. We appreciate it.
And we promise
Uncle Buck will not
he will not read it.
Read your
read
review.
your review.
No, not at all.
Thank you, everybody.
Guys, this is another awesome week.
Thanks,
We'll
Dave.
see you next week, right?
Rig 'em weedless.
Later.
Love y'all.
Just do a quicker wrap up.
Yeah.
What are we at? We're at 103.
Perfect.
And this is it's all good. He's not going to have to cut much out.
No, I mean,
You're welcome, Will.
Will, we
Will.
love you. This is probably maybe 50 minutes worth of good stuff.